if we extrude in a very small amount, and then again, what it does is it creates this extra edge here near the edge here, and this will help us to create a more solid foundation for this geometry. Let's extrude in again a little bit, and maybe a little bit more, and then just pull this out ever so slightly. Of course, I'm just making this up as I'm going along, so the methods that I'm showing you now is so you can do the same. It's good to take note when you get overlapping, and this can easily occur if you've got the smoothing on. In this particular case it's not, but if you do have the smoothing on when you're making your geometry, it can easily happen. Let's just go to smooth this out. We can see that we've already started to get some shape already. I can see right away that I like to have a bit more thickness to this bike, so I just scale the whole object up. I can also see that really the seat, when it's smoothed, is not really looking a separate part. We want to give it the illusion of a separate part, so the best way to do this will be to literally create another set of edges. Now there's several ways that you can create another set of edges. One way, which I'm going to show you now, is to use a double edge tool found in the edges selection. And in fact, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure that I've got all of the right ones selected. Alpha loop, in this particular case, go to vertex modeling, the edge tool, and select the double edge one here. We go a little bit closer and we want to create a nice tight double edge. And before we deselect anything, what we do is we just scale it in slightly so it's pulling in, and it must be very slight. You can always use the numeric values to do this if you wish. Let's move this down a little bit. When you go to smooth, you'll see now that we've actually got a much tighter edge. You may want to manipulate certain edges, like up here, to continue that contour. If you see anything at any stage like overlapping edges, just deal with them there and then. Don't wait till later. Same for the front of the actual light area. Do exactly the same as we did for the back. Extrude in slightly more, just one little small extrusion and one larger one. In this particular case, I'm going to leave the smoothing on when I make the next extrusion. And I can see from this that maybe we've got the actual edges a little bit too thin, so you may want to go back and just sort that out so it's a deeper extrusion, retaining the edges to be a bit more thicker. When you've finally added all the slices that you need to make all the geometry, it looks something like this. I've applied all the same methods that I've just showed you. Periodically, just go back to the smoothing levels just to see how things are shaping up. In the end, you should be able to get the geometry and shape that you're after while smoothed. Remember to retain at all times the lowest subdivisional level. So let's next go and make the exhaust pipe. This is very, very simple to make. We're going to go to the lines, circle from center, and draw a circle. We need to make sure that we haven't got too many points. It's really unnecessary. In this particular case, we might get away with something like 12, or even less. Let's just validate that. And we'll just make an extrusion. It's best to take notes that which direction the actual blue handle is pointing when you make an extrusion. If you extrude the wrong way, the normals will be reversed. So we need to make an extrusion this way. You can normally tell if you turn off the show and hide back faces. You can see this is correct. If you go the other way, you can see that this is incorrect. So if you always go in the direction of the blue handle, you won't get your normals reversed. Now, taking that this is the larger end, we scale it down for the smaller end here. And validate if necessary. Just clicking once on the screen will deselect that. We can then go and select this curve if we may need it or may not, and then we can just delete it. I tend to keep my curves and order them in somewhere at a different location within the scene tree. Now we want to add a bit of thickness to this. But before we add thickness, there's one thing I want to do. Maybe add some extra bit of geometry for the center here, just to hold it together a bit more better. Maybe you want to add some geometry for adding a line or something through it. Because we want to actually save some polygons, we don't want to make too many, it's best sometimes that we do the thicken first in this particular case if you want to add extra geometry to make lines. In this particular case I will, so I'm going to go to the vertex modeling tab, the surface modeling tab, and click on the thicken tool, and we'll just adjust this and validate. Now I'm going to slice it once just there with the tessellation by slice. Then I'm going to loop select alpha loop, and just as we did before in the vertex modeling tab, select the double-edged extrusion line tool. We can do this once like that, validate, and then with our selection still selected, we can just scale this in ever so slightly. When we smooth out, we've got this nice little dip in the geometry. We'll just have a look there, you see this? If you don't like it too rounded like this, you can always add extra geometry. You can do this by doing the following. I've just gone back, undo a couple of steps. We can add another double edge, a little bit smaller inside that. Validate. Then we will convert this current selection to polygons, all the faces. So we go select and convert to faces. Now when we bring this in, we've got that extra bit of geometry there. We can then, if need be, loop select around the outside edges and create maybe a single edge.